Looks good. Great. Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Barry and Andy, for having me here. It's always a pleasure. It's really cool to see the community you guys grew. And just from, I've done one talk before, and everyone has been really positive with their feedback and the engagement. So I'm really hoping this workshop will not only give you some tools on creating, on concepting for AR, but also I'm hoping we can kind of foster some collaboration and get an idea of feeling like a group. I mean, most of us are in New York, you know, we're physically close to each other. So let's just dive right into it. So I realize the word concepting isn't a real word, but it's something I like to say when I'm coming up with ideas. I guess prototyping could be another way of saying it, but I'll walk you through that process. So from start to finish, I'm going to use this Llama as my main example. It was from an old project back in like 2017 that I repurposed to kind of bring you guys through sort of a quick, easy way of showing you how to get from concept to reality in Lens Studio. So the way I'm planning on structuring this, let me get this out of the way. The way I'm planning on structuring this, we're going to start the first 20 minutes in the Llama lab, and that's where I'm going to be taking you guys from the concept to the creation in Lens Studio of the Llama. The second part of this workshop is going to be back on you, the team. I want this to be interactive. I'm going to give you a creative brief similar to what a client might pitch to you for an AR project. And I want us to get 15 minutes to just sit down, and I'll tell you exactly what that is when we get to it, but just sit down and come up with some cool AR ideas. And then the last 25 minutes, we're going to have a little bit of discussion. Like Andy said, hoping we can get out of our comfort zones a little bit, share ideas with each other, do a little bit of yes-anding, just to sort of foster that creative energy that comes from a group of talented people. So these are a few things. I'm going to dive right in. Before I hop into Lens Studio, I want to bring you guys sort of some tools and techniques I use for coming up with characters at the start. I've heard a quote, and I don't know who it's attributed to, but I'll look it up later. But if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I think that works really well, even when creating something really stupid like a llama. The second thing I'm going to go through is your bigs, mediums, and smalls. And it's a technique that follows through any design principles. And this one sounds really morbid, but I promise it's an industry term called killing your babies. I've heard some people call it killing your darlings, but I think the word babies is the right word because of how painful this process should be. But I'll get to that later. Don't check out. I promise it's not that bad. So the first thing is you want to start with reference. This seems self-explanatory, but especially with the age of internet, and we can see all sorts of people's work, there's opportunities everywhere to find things, right? So when you're looking, I encourage you to start at the reality of it. So when you're coming up with something for AR, I worked as an animator for 10 years. So a lot of what I was doing was taking reality and stretching it as far as I can go and then bringing it back to somewhere in the middle ground. You don't want it to be an exact replica of a llama because people can just see that in real life. But you don't want it to be so abstract and weird unless that's what you're going for. So you want to try to find that middle point. So I say always start with the reference. I recommend you start somewhere like Google, just Google Images, Pinterest. Of course, when you want to get into more of the modeling phase, that's when you can look at Sketchfab just to sort of see how different people have done things. But I would recommend starting here. When looking at it, so for this llama here, we want to figure out what is the basic root of this, right? What is the shape of the llama? So a lot of the times when I'm making a character, you want it to be relatable. So I focus usually on the face first. So I'm like, okay, the ears are definitely part of it. I want to sort of workshop that a little bit. The eyes, definitely, those big gloopy eyes, like how far apart are they? And this little snout to give it that little smile to reassure you, tell you everything's okay, right? So the downside of getting too inspired by someone else's design, and that's sort of what I want to drive home with this, is a lot of times people will see other people's work and they will create it, and even though it feels like yours, a lot of the times it can be sort of plagiarism, which can can come in your way if you make something really cool and someone finds out it's the same thing, or even when you're using assets that are exactly the same as other people. So just an encouragement that when you're going through this reference, I recommend you always keep the reference up when you're working on this. I usually take this screenshot, put it on the right-hand side as I'm making my little llama and be like, okay, what else can I grab from there? Oh, the tail, I forgot about the tail. Okay, what else? Oh, long neck, right? So once I'm getting into, now I have the idea of my llama's head. I want it to sort of be simplistic, but also fun. This gets into the principles of bigs, mediums, and smalls. And I'm going to drive this point home because I was taught this not that many years ago, and I didn't realize how widespread this principle is. But when you go into, so let's take a look at this llama, right? Everything is broken up into big pieces. So let's call this body a big piece, medium pieces. So maybe the ear here, maybe this ear, maybe his face, legs, and then smalls. We get the little details, the eyes, the mouth, the nose, the ears, the tail. So it's broken up in different pieces. And if we want to go even further, we could look at one of the faces here. So big head, medium ears, face small. So you want to be working and getting that ratio right. So right here, this body was a little too big. It felt a little awkward. This one, again, the mediums didn't quite read as mediums because this body was so chunky. So this was a nice little ratio. I found that it worked well. So why does that principle exist? I saw this great video, if you want a further breakdown of this, Design Theory, Big, Medium, Small by Cynics Designs. I recommend you watch that video. We could maybe send out a link later, but it follows the Fibonacci sequence. I don't know if you guys, hopefully most people have heard of the Fibonacci sequence, but it's sort of like the natural order that things fall into. And we can see here, Pikachu falls into it. Bigs, medium, tail, small, little details there. So let's look at Homer Simpson here. So let's just focus on his head, right? So let's think, where do we see the big? Where do we see the mediums, and where do we see the small? It's not always an exact science, but try to start seeing things from that angle. And it's easy to see it in character. So let's look big, probably the head, right? Medium, we got these eyeballs, the mouth, small, little details, right? So check it out. So we got the hair, big, smalls, so small up, eyeballs, little pupils. Mediums, I probably could have thrown the nose in a medium, but I just focused on the eyes and the mouth here. So that's just something you want to do when you're looking at things. This is actually Andy's profile image here. I just saw it right before the meeting. Yeah, there it is. And I was like, oh, let me grab that because it's perfect. So let's look. So bigs. I guess you might be able to call the whole thing a big, maybe. Maybe you call these a bigs. Maybe you call these mediums. Maybe you call these smalls. It's just a rule of life, but it really helps out, especially when you're going through and iterating, which is a point I'm going to get to. Just work through how things flow together and they look nice in the end. So iterating, this is just a principle of going through and having a bunch of ideas. I remember when I first got started as a designer, I would design one thing and then I would backspace, delete, start again, and then I would backspace, delete, and I wouldn't save it. And something that one of my friends, Brett, and I saw him doing is that he takes, every time he makes something, he doesn't delete it. He puts it off to the side, duplicates it, and makes another one. And that's what I started to get in the principle of whenever I'm doing designs. And I find that it's very helpful because you can kind of go really far with it and then again, bring it back. So I did that with the heads here. Just keep iterating until something looks good. I did that with the colors here until I found a color scheme that I liked. Seth Godin, some marketer guru guy that some of you might have heard of, said after you produce, you can select, you can curate, you can censor. But for now, have bad ideas and lots of bad ideas. So that's with the workshop, with coming up with these things, like none of your first ideas are going to be good. Your llama, my llama is going to look like crap when I first draw them on paper. But when you keep going through and you keep whittling down and you make that box tighter and tighter for yourself, that's where you get to those really good golden ideas. And get feedback from all your friends, people who aren't in AR, other people in AR. That's how you really grow. So one last concept here is killing your babies. or killing your darlings. I'm going to use this example. I think this is more powerful than the llama, but we'll jump back to the llama. I was making this game. Enoch and Noah helped me out. They're in this call here. But it was a game that you're supposed to, it's going to be hand tracking, and you're attacking this monster who's throwing little minions at you, right? That was the idea. So I came up with the idea of this armor, and he has health, and he hits him, and it was getting very complicated, and we were running low on time because we wanted to release it for Halloween. So what we ended up doing is like, you know what? Let's think smaller. Let's kill that boss, right? He's gone. Even though it was a really cool idea and I was really heart set on it, the timing just wasn't going to work out. I couldn't figure out how I quite wanted it to work. And honestly, what I ended up doing was just repurposing another one of my old assets that I made, this little tombstone. And I made the minions, which I've had already. I knew I wanted to be in it, and I just had them kind of launched into it and explode. So it was still really cool, and it still got a lot of engagement, and I think it looks well. But it's just good to see that like not every idea that you have has to be put on the paper. And as you go through it, you'll be able to curate what you will and won't have. So anyways, those are a little bit of more of the high level creative concepting and the ways to think about it. I'm going to jump in now and give you a little bit more of the production side. And this is going to take you from Cinema 4D, which is the program that I use for 3D, Blender, Maya, Studio Max, any of them work. And then I'm going to take you to Lens Studio and just give you sort of the run through of how that works. So let me, so you still see my screen? We're good, Andy? Okay, cool. Awesome. So here is the llama after I took it from creation. I can give you guys more of a rundown of that later. My good friend Art Castillo helped me out on the body here a little bit to get that nice slope in this neck piece. So I'll link him. He's a really solid dude. But once we get it from there, we can sort of see that I broke it up into the body and the head. And going off the principle of killing your darlings, originally, this llama was supposed to be a roller skater. And you can see those down here. I left them on for you guys, a little treat in case anybody wants to know what to do with that. But again, I was like, you know what? Skating's cool, but I want this llama to bounce because I think that would be fun. So let's play this little animation here. It's just a few keyframes you can see down here. Keyframes are animation data. If you want something to jump, if you want something to move. So we can see we have scale here, we have position, and those tell the llama what to do. A lot of the animation that you do for a program like Unity, a program like Lens Studio, they need to be very simple. A lot of times people animate with deformers or even more complicated rigs. I'm trying to think of some examples. I think deformers might be the best example. You want to keep your animations basic. A principle that a lot of people use is PSR, which stands for position, scale, and rotation. So thinking of animation, you want to try to think limiting yourself to those three ideas. So position is his height, his little jump here. The scale, see how it kind of squishes a little bit. And then rotation, he's rotating up. And also, if you want to add some more complicated type of animations, bone rigs are also supported. In bone rigs, that's used a lot in game engines. I can do a further breakdown of that in the future. But so I see right here, I have his little idle pose and then his jump pose. So once I have that working good, I have these little materials on there that I added. We're just going to export it, and I've already exported it, but I typically do just an FBX file to keep it simple. And you can see I already have it exported out here, and that's the same one that everyone in this group will be getting. So now that we have that exported, we're going to jump into Lens Studio. Yay, we're finally doing Lens Studio, the reason everyone's here. So Lens Studio is a fantastic software for coming up with ideas, for iterating, for prototyping, because they've done most of the hard work for you. And I think that's important, especially someone like me who's more of a creative director, animator. I know how to do some code and I can do some blocking, some visual based, but when it comes down to the hard code, that's something I leave to someone like my friend Enoch or the lovely people at Snapchat have done for you. And not to say you can't edit the hard code, but having a place to start is really great for your creativity. So let's just look at one of the templates here. I'll show you. This is just their templates page. And what's really cool about that is they have so many different starting points for you that you can really do most type of lenses that you want to create. So let's look at this facial expression one. This one's really cool. So see, it follows the user, it maps their mouth, their eyes, the blinking. And if you want a guide, if you want to know how to do it, you just click video and guide. And it gives you a really in-depth breakdown of how every single thing works. It's fantastic documentation. The same can't be said about some of their competitors, but they'll walk you through step by step on how to do it. So if that's maybe a little too complicated, you can start as something, let's say like what I'm going to be showing you today is this animated object. So this is more of their basic side, but if you forget some of the things that I'm mentioning today, you can walk through this and it'll give you a step-by-step process on how to do it. So let's just jump right in. I have this file already on my recent projects over here, but we're going to dive in. You're going to see what it looks like. I'm going to show you how to import the Llama, and then I'm going to show you how to separate the animations and then play with it a little bit. So I already have it imported. You can see here, when I click the ground, he moves around. This port right here is what would be seen in the phone. This is what people will see. They have that sort of mock movement to kind of give the feeling of it. This scene right here is just where my assets are going to be placed. These are the things that will be seen in my scene. The resources is a lot of my assets that I'll be going through. And then the inspector, this will give you more information on each part of it. So let's get started. We can walk through this at a later date if that's something you guys are interested in and going really in depth with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight up here to the import section. I'm going to take my Llama animation, which is this FBX file. I'm just going to click open. Let's hide this Llama once that one comes in, so you're not getting confused by what's set up here. So, okay, so here's my Llama. He's got his roller skates on. Even though that layer was hidden, it's still going to show up. So if you want to reduce something down, make sure that you're either deleting it or just remember that when you go in here, you have to like hide the roller skates. So I'm just going to hide the roller skates for now, right? So as you can see, he's bouncing, but I can't move him. The ground is still moving, but I can't do anything with him. So when you start these templates, Lens Studio will give you one of their little characters already set up. All right, and this is, again, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. This has already been done for you. So what it says here, it says replace me, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Sorry, elephant, you're gone. Boom. I feel nothing. All right, now we see here that my Llama has now replaced, he has absorbed the life energy from the elephant, and he is now in his stead. But you can see that the Llama is jumping on a constant loop here. And that's could be cool if that's what you're going for, but I want to add some interactivity. I want people to be able to play with this. And I want them to treat it like a toy, right? I want them to be able to tap it and control when the Llama bounces. So how I'm going to do that is in here, we can see the animation mixer. So this is just default. Let me move this over here. So you see that's just playing the whole animation. So the whole animation is 1.967 seconds. I'm going to switch that to frames because I did it in a 60 frame interval. So let's look what that means with the frames, right? So we can see down here, right above Andy's head, that I have 30 frames of an idle animation, right? And then I have the last 30 is the jump all the way to 60. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to call this an idle animation. I'm going to go from 0 frames to 30 frames, right? And now it's automatically playing. See, no more jump. But what I want to do is I want to make a jump. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to add a clip. I'm going to name this one jump. And based on my reference, I know that it starts at frame 30 and ends at frame 60. So now I have this information here, but we need to call it. And like I said, Lens Studio does a lot of the hard lifting, heavy lifting for you. You can go in and custom code these interactions, but what I'm going to use is something called a behavior script. And a behavior script is a really nifty, let me see if I can find it. Go up here, I just type in behavior. It's a really nifty little behavior script. And what a behavior script is, you see I have it parented underneath my little layer here. And I'm going to keep it on a tap event. You can change this to a face event. So if someone taps your face, on awake when the lens starts, look distance, custom triggers, start recording. Pretty much it gives you a lot of like inputs essentially. So that's my input is a touch event, and I'm just going to set it to nothing, which just means it will tap the whole screen. If I wanted to be more specific, I can say if you tap this part of his body, you tap this part of his body, but I'm just going to keep it simple and just say on the screen tap. And what I'm going to have as the response is I'm going to animate the mesh. So because I clicked animate mesh, it's going to drop down a few more options for me. I'm going to go down and I'm going to find the animation mixer. And apologies if I'm going through this too fast. Again, in the documentation, there's step-by-step for all of this. But I'm going to click the little animation mixer, right? And then I'm going to have it set up to play the jump. And I'm going to have it play once, and I'm going to uncheck stop other layers that interrupts it. But let's see if I did this right. Yeah, nice. So he goes around here, but when I tap, it animates the jump. And I can have it set up that, you know, when I tap it, he moves across the screen. We can do different types of animations things, but that is just kind of showing you the basic if-then of it. So if tap, then bounce. So that's really cool. That's just the basic interaction. But the more fun that you can have, the most fun, I would say, for me, is messing around with materials. So let's just go into, I went into my resources here. I knew that by selecting on its head, it was using this pink material. I've put the llama in here a few times, so there was a few duplicates. But what's cool is you can kind of go in. Something I like to do is add some rim highlight. You can kind of mess with the shape of the little outline around it. I can go in here and change this maybe to blue, right? And then, you know, it's just kind of art. You can just do whatever you want. But what's cool is that Lens Studio has some little presets that I like to play with. Because again, sometimes I can be a little lazy, and I like when somebody's already done the hard work for me. So this is a cool one. This is a little hologram one that they set, and it adds some additional things like the swizzle effect where it does that little glitch. And if you want to get into more of the nitty-gritty of that, we have this thing called the material editor, and it uses node-based coding or node-based material editing. So you can see you have the little swizzle here. If I take that off, I think that'll break it, right? Or something. That might not be the right one. But anyways, you can do a lot. There's a lot of custom types of animations you can do. I'll show you. I made a few examples in here to show sort of the depth, right? So here's my little holographic guy. But this one's fun. So this one here has a bit of a twist on it. It's called the twist, and I can show you guys how to get that. But it's fairly simple. It's in one of their templates. And also what's cool is that he has a melting material on him, which I used in my Chug Jug filter. But the exciting thing about that is if I push him into the ground, he melts. He's making me a liar. Come on. There he goes. So that's a fun one. So you can go from a nice, cute llama to a disturbing slug monster really easily. But anyways, that's the brief overview of Lens Studio. We can dive more into that. I would love to. Thank you, Andy. Thank you for the time with that. But again, I think the main thing that I want to really hone in is the creation and the ideation and the rapid iteration that Lens Studio allows. I don't know, this has happened to me a lot where I get this really crazy idea for a game, and it has to have this asset and that asset and this, and I don't realize until halfway through that it's either way too much, I can't physically do it because I don't have the time or the resources, or the idea morphs into something else halfway through the process. But yeah, so Andy, do you want me to kick off the next part of it, or do you think we should
kick it off
here for some QA? Okay, cool.
You know what? We have one question. We have just one question that I wanted to ask you. Someone had a question on the process. So let me pull it up.
Sure.
Let's see here. Something about simulation. Can this be used for simulation? Do you understand?
Yeah, so yeah, what's cool about that, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you can go up to the top and just click preview in Snapchat, and it sends it directly to your phone. If you're using something like Spark AR, it's the same thing. I hope that was the question, but simulation, yeah, it goes directly to your phone.
Awesome, let's do it.
Sweet, awesome. So that was the first part. I want to get your creative brains thinking of how interactivity works, how materials work, and sort of the process of whittling things down. So the next part, let me share my screen again. I want to, let's go here. Okay, great. So I'm putting the prompt on you, the creators, the New York AR Wonder Group. You have been given a client pitch, right? A proposal. Their prompt is it's a new frozen treat shop that just opened up in each village. And they would love if you had an AR filter that can promote their shop. So we're going to give you guys 15 minutes of protected time. And it's good to have time limits on your ideas, and it's good to get them down. You might have some ideas in your heads, but it's good to just start flowing, start doodling, start sketching. I have a million notes every day. I have Post-it notes all over my office. So I recommend that you guys take this next 15 minutes to either write down ideas, and just get some ideas on pen. You can sketch, you can draw what you think that this AR experience might look like. You can do doodles to do some if-then statements, if tap, then whatever. Or if you're feeling bold, you can crack open Lens Studio and just make something. So after we do that, I would love for us to come back. If people are feeling brave, raise their hands. If not, we're going to call on people and make them brave. And then we're just going to share some ideas and then collaborate from there. So if that sounds good, we can go ahead and start it. I'll share my screen. I'm just going to be, honestly, I haven't thought about what I'm going to do yet. So I'm probably just going to be creating something in Google Slides, and maybe I'll make a lens. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Cool.
How much time should we set for this, Alex?
I think 15 minutes is good.
Okay.
It's just uncomfortably long enough to get all of your ideas down. So I think that'll be fun.
Awesome.
Cool. Does anybody have any questions before we hop into it? Or do you want to just go? Okay, ready? Boom. All right, see you guys on the other side.
time is up. Finish up your projects and get ready to share. Alex, that looks very cute. I would go to that ice cream shop. Okay. Awesome. So now it's time to share your work. If you'd like to share, please type in the chat or raise your hand in the participants panel, and you'll get the chance to hear feedback from Alex and the group. So Noah, you said you're ready for sharing. So if you'd like to share your screen, feel free to go ahead. I'll enable that now.
All right. Let's see if I can figure out how Zoom works so I can share my screen.
Awesome. So if you need help, there's a green button on the bottom of the Zoom panel
Awesome.
that you can just tap on.
I don't know how I missed that one.
Yeah. Giving that advice.
All right. So
nice.
If my screen is being shared, I figured I'd start pretty simply and take Alex's advice there with starting from a template, so that a good amount of what my idea was would already be done for me. Spend time a little more wisely. And so I started with upper garment segmentation template, which lets you put a texture and then animate it on a shirt. I was able to find the company in question's logo and apply it to the shirt and animate it, so like a walk-in advertisement, walk-in billboard now. And I didn't think it was quite enough, so I hopped onto a Sketchfab, which is a great resource to find like royalty-free models and stuff, especially if you want to prototype and figure out, all right, how would a model really work in this kind of situation? I found a model for some ice cream, and I decided to scale it and put it on a head binding, which is right here, so that it tracks to the user's head. And I did a couple little extra things using the tween manager and behavior scripts. I believe Alex mentioned the behavior scripts earlier in his little lecture there, which are just two built-in like extra functionalities of Lens Studio. The tween manager specifically animating the ice cream so that it could bounce up and down on the user's head. And I also color shifted it at the same time so that it changes flavors from chocolate to vanilla, which I thought was a nice little touch there.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Noah is very well versed in Lens Studio, so don't feel bad if your ideas are not as flushed out, but I thought that was really cool. I like the added touch that you have, Noah, of the bouncing on it and how it like changes from there, because it's cool to like stack things on people's heads and stuff, but it's cool that it had that little jiggle to it. Makes it feel a little more real.
Oh yeah, and for those who might feel like this looks like an awful lot has suddenly happened here, it's actually a fairly, I'd say it's actually pretty easy to get a setup like this once you start learning how to mix and match certain templates. And if you really get your feet wet in the software, I think you can end up pulling stuff like this together pretty quickly. I'd say I'm pretty well versed in Lens Studio myself, but I got there just doing little things like this, hopping into templates and figuring out how things work by seeing other people's examples, which is absolutely the way to start.
Thank you, Noah. It was great to see your creation and amazing how much you were able to learn in 30 minutes. So thanks for sharing. Let me show, I'll show my really lo-fi example compared to that. So I'll share my screen. So I made, hold on. So I have an elephant eating a gold ice cream. And on the bottom here, you could choose the different flavors that are available at the ice cream shop. So maybe the user could anticipate what are the different flavors that they're selling. So they might, like, that might draw them to go to the ice cream store if they could see all the different flavors. And of course, have an elephant eat the ice cream is always a plus. What do you think, Alex?
No, I mean, I love it. I love using characters obviously, because I think they give a lot of life very easily. And I think just seeing a cute character eating ice cream is enough to make people post about it.
Okay, awesome.
But the fact that you have options to go through it, again, thinking of like where to add the interactivity, which is in the world of AR, we should always be thinking of like, okay, what things can I allow this person to do and like have their own sense of like creation and exploration with it. So maybe if you clicked one of these, the elephant can do a little flip or something like that would be fun.
Yeah, those are great suggestions, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like Danielle Williams has something to share as well. Please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Use my full name and everything. Okay. Yeah, my idea was just like making a person the ice cream. So I guess um I'm trying to use like the right language, like putting a texture on the person themselves and letting them decorate themselves, change the flavor of ice cream that they are, and have it like animate and look all melty and cool. And you can add different toppings to yourself and all that nice stuff. I was wondering if there's a way, since I was also thinking about the AR aspect of this and wondering if there's a way to use like location data. My idea was like somebody would be at the storefront and they could take a picture of themselves and like share it with their friends. So if you could use the location data to allow them to use um
Yeah.
that lens at the storefront, that would be, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely can. That's something that Snapchat is definitely opening up more
Mhm.
of. Right now, they have some of like the big locations like Statue of Liberty, Flatiron Building. They have it machine learning, so you could point at it and it'll know like, oh, I can have an ice cream come cutting out of the side of the wall or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if they can do it specifically to one
Like
location,
a,
like an ice cream shop, but
yeah.
in a marketing campaign,
Mhm.
people will usually, you know how you can like tag things on Instagram
Mhm.
or Lens Studio? You can like prompt people to like share this with your friends, and that's a lot of the
Right.
marketing gets. But I love the idea of the sprinkles on the head and changing yourself. I think that's something I've noticed a lot is
Mhm.
the lenses and filters that do really well show the person's face a lot of
Mhm.
times. I typically like to show the world camera just because I like cute animations, but people love seeing themselves. And I think the idea of adding the sprinkles and adding the flavor and letting them play with it and create in their own way would be really cool. So that's awesome. Great idea.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Danielle. Thanks for sharing. So it looks like we're out of time. Alex, it's been a real pleasure. We hope to have you back soon. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Hopefully you get some more time to play around with Lens Studio and utilize what you learned today. Alex, if you have any of your contact info, please feel
Yeah,
free
let
to
me
share.
share it really quick. I know we're out of time here, but you can just find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. Just Alex Bradt, and there is a silent D. So you can see there's my name. You can just look me up, ask me any questions. I know I kind of ran through this, and would also love to hear any feedback from you guys. Maybe I could put together a forum just to hear what you'd like to learn about more, maybe more the creative side, maybe more of the technical side. But just hit me up. I'm down to talk. I love talking about this stuff. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Andy, for having me on. Hope to be on again. But yeah, keep up the great work.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.